Welcome to Have You Read It? The channel where we bring books to life, one summary at a time. Today, we're diving into Brian Klaas's thought-provoking book, Fluke, Why Small Changes Make a Big Difference. This book challenges our understanding of how the world works, arguing that chance, chaos, and seemingly insignificant events play a far greater role in shaping our lives and societies than we typically acknowledge. Klaas, a political scientist and expert in global politics, masterfully weaves together history, science, and philosophy to reveal the hidden forces that drive human events. Fluke is a valuable read because it encourages us to move beyond simplistic explanations and embrace the complexity and uncertainty that define our existence. It's a fascinating exploration of how the smallest changes can lead to the biggest consequences, prompting us to reconsider our assumptions about cause and effect. Let's get into the main ideas of Fluke. The book opens with a compelling story about the atomic bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, revealing how a vacation choice and a fleeting cloud ultimately determined the fate of hundreds of thousands of people. This illustrates the central theme of the book, that seemingly insignificant events can have enormous and unpredictable consequences. Klaas introduces the concept of Kokora's luck, referring to how the city of Kokora was spared from an atomic bomb due to cloud cover. He poses the question, if hundreds of thousands of people could live or die based on one couple's vacation choice decades earlier, which seemingly trivial choices or accidents could end up drastically changing the course of your life, even far into the future. The book challenges our tendency to ignore flukes and near misses, emphasizing that our lives and societies could be profoundly different but for a few small changes. We often dismiss these as meaningless, but they can have a radical impact on our possible lives. Drawing on Jorge Luis Borges's short story, The Garden of Forking Paths, Klaas highlights how our paths are constantly being redirected by the decisions of others, those hidden Kyoto and Kokura moments that determine the contours of our existence. Klaas explores the philosophical concept of amor fati, or love of one's fate, urging us to accept that our lives are the culmination of everything that came before us, including both the triumphs and the tragedies. He shares a personal story about his great-grandfather, whose first wife tragically killed their children and herself, and how his own existence was only made possible by that gruesome event. He discusses his time in Zambia, where he was researching a failed coup attempt. He learned that democracy only survived by a thread because a soldier failed to get a good grip on the general's pants. What we are taught is not as straightforward as it may seem. The author introduces the concepts of contingency and convergence, drawing on examples from evolutionary biology. Contingency refers to how small, seemingly random events can lead evolution down diverging paths, while convergence suggests that nature sometimes converges toward the same effective solution, regardless of those contingencies. Klaas recounts Mortu Kimura's story, a biologist who narrowly avoided death by the atomic bomb dropped on Kyoto, where he was a student. Kimura's career trajectory, and later the field of evolutionary biology, pivoted on a rotten meal, and his studies helped our understanding of the flukes within the evolutionary world. Building on chaos theory, the book explains how an infinitesimal change in wind speed can create storms a few months later. This leads to unsettling questions about our own existence. Are our lives ruled by insignificant choices and seemingly random bits of misfortune or luck? The delusion of individualism is challenged through the story of Ivan, a tourist who survived 18 hours at sea by clinging to a soccer ball that drifted 80 miles. The mother of the boys who kicked the ball into the sea had thought nothing of purchasing a new ball. They only later realized that without their accidental kick, Ivan would now be dead. The author introduces Pierre-Simon Laplace and his concept of Laplace's demon, a hypothetical being with the ability to know the precise location and momentum of every atom in the universe. Laplace proposed that if such a being existed, it would be able to predict the future with absolute certainty. He contrasts Laplace's concept to Edward Norton Lawrence's chaos theory and the butterfly effect, explaining that in a clockwork universe with controlled conditions, minuscule changes can make an enormous difference. Just by raising the temperature 1/millionth of a degree or lowering atmospheric pressure by a trillionth of a bar, the weather 2 months later could morph from a clear blue sky into a torrential downpour, even a hurricane. This leads to an example of Kokora. Klaas argues that in an intertwined world such as ours, everything we do matters because our ripples can produce storms, or calm them, in the lives of others. We control far less of our world than we think we do, because earth-shattering events can develop based on strange, unexpected interactions that are nearly impossible to predict. The author points to a quote by Martin Luther King Jr. "We are caught in an inescapable network of mutuality, tied in a single garment of destiny." Discussing why we discount the total unity of our world, the author explains a fundamental division in philosophy between the atomistic and the relational view of the world. He argues that the atomistic view holds that our individual nature is separable, whereas the relational view holds that individuals can only be understood as part of something larger, that our identities are defined socially and contextually within nature as part of a wider whole. The book explores the division between Eastern and Western thinking and why the West may tend to atomism. One suggestion is that with ancient Eastern cultures, the people lived among monkeys and apes, making it impossible to ignore that we were part of nature. Another suggestion was that the God of Genesis is distinct from nature. Scientists, particularly those who study complex systems, have long known the truth of our world. Biologists have stopped referring to humans as individuals and have started referring to each person as a holobiont, which includes a core host. In our case, a human, as well as the zoo of organisms living in or around us. Our modern misconceptions trim the vast complexity of reality down, allowing us to cram its maddening messiances into tidy little boxes that feel more manageable. Those boxes replace uncertainty with certainty, chaos with order, disordered complexity with elegant simplicity, and an intertwined, accidental world with one governed by mostly rational individuals making independent choices. Evolutionary change is addressed through one of Darwin's core insights, that the natural world creates selection pressures that determine, on average, who survives and who dies. Change happens suddenly or slowly. Evolution by creeps versus evolution by jerks. The long-term evolution experiment, LTEE with E. Coley has been running since 1988. Lenski's team froze samples to replay any part of the experiment from a snapshot in time. In 2004, a scientist named Zachary Blount joined. They test whether contingency or convergence rules. In January 2003, an opacity in the lines of bacteria changed everything. The bacteria had evolved the ability to eat the citrate they were swimming in, which shouldn't have been possible. As time goes on, the bacteria gets stranger as mutation occurs. After that, the author brings in a topic known as changing anything changes everything. Most of us assume that truth is, by definition, useful. Our perceptions have been forged over millions of years, fine-tuned to help us survive. Nothing more, nothing less. Neuroscience evidence is accumulating that one mechanism by which we get better at navigating the world is through synaptic pruning. The brains of newborns are packed with 100 billion neurons. Then, we get brain organization from this process. A way to explore our changing vision is through color vision, where most of us see millions of colors. Scientists have since found a woman who can see 100 million, where millions was the average ability. There are random advantages and disadvantages throughout the animal kingdom. The brains are pattern detection machines. But our brains also evolved to be allergic to chance and chaos, wrongly detecting patterns and proposing false reasons for why things happen rather than accepting the accidental or the arbitrary as the correct explanation. In order to understand the why, we must look into what makes us that way through social changes. Swarms and plagues are not entirely different for better or for worse. Human society is a complex adaptive system that is defined by intertwined relationships and ripples, not separable individual pieces. Self-organized criticality is an important concept because it describes the system that occurs from an overabundance or lack of a piece. It leads to unpredictable situations, like the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand, that triggers World War I. Probabilistic statements can be useful if used correctly to help us to determine what we can and can't understand about ourselves as we navigate a complex world swayed by the random, the arbitrary, and the accidental. From the past, we know that the I Ching functioned as a divination machine, with yarrow stalks used to tap into a deeper, sturdier truth for many followers. Frequency and belief-type probabilities are important to mention, because often there is confusion about what type of knowledge we may hold. However, each situation has limits where one system has an advantage over the other and vice versa, creating different effects. A small group of unusual believers can plausibly change the world for everyone else. A red-haired cow creates chaos within our systems. Humans act according to our beliefs, the why that drives us. We need to question what we mean when we say free will. Perhaps it just means that our behavior is internally caused because humans have an overwhelming sense of the importance of individual choices, of acting in response to what matters to us. Narratives give shape to history as we create order to the world. So, why do things happen in the way they do? Geography shapes our destinies. For instance, England is on an island. A decision had to be made to see it like this, for people to act to build it into a shipping superpower. In the natural environment, that shape of the land around us is unchanging, but all of it influences human action. That leads to thinking that, without the natural gifts, no progress can be had. The book circles back to our understanding of science. The human has to make their influence. What did it make? We talk about the brain, the action. To what extent will that thing change? Is nature real? You have to know where to look if you're going for a run. Here are some key takeaways from Fluke. Everything is interconnected. We are all part of an inescapable network of mutuality, where even the smallest actions can have far-reaching consequences. Chance and chaos matter. Seemingly random events and accidents play a significant role in shaping our lives and societies, often more than we realize. Individualism is a delusion. We are not independent units solely in charge of our lives, but rather entangled beings influenced by countless factors beyond our control. Embrace amor fati, accept and even embrace your fate, recognizing that your life is the culmination of everything that came before you, both the good and the bad. Contingency reigns supreme. Be aware that even the most stable aspects of our lives can be upended by small contingent events. Our brains deceive us. Our minds have evolved to simplify reality and detect patterns, often leading us to ignore or misinterpret the role of chance and chaos. You control nothing, but influence everything. Recognize that even our smallest decisions matter and can forever alter the world. In closing, Fluke challenges us to reconsider our understanding of the world, urging us to embrace uncertainty and recognize the profound impact of seemingly insignificant events. By accepting the chaotic, intertwined nature of reality, we can move beyond comforting lies and discover new meaning in a world that defies simple explanations. Remember, even the smallest actions can have boundless consequences, and a single word can change everything. So, I encourage you to pick up Fluke and explore these fascinating concepts further. It's a journey that will challenge your assumptions and leave you with a new appreciation for the flukes that shape our existence. Thanks for watching. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button so you never miss our next book dive.